Hi guys, welcome to Ocean Chicks Films. I'm Karen and you're watching Movie Talk. Tonight we have YouTubers Mr. Dan and Horror and Terence Miguana in the broadcast studio. Dan and Terence chat with me about the 1973 dystopian thriller Soylent Green, starring Charlton Heston and Edward G. Robinson. So sit back and enjoy this interview, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Soylent Green from 1973. In an overpopulated New York City of the future, Detective Robert Thorne investigates the murder of an executive of a corporation called Soylent that manufactures a food-like substance made of plankton to a starving population. Directed by Richard Fleischer, starring Charlton Heston, Edward G. Robinson, and Lee Taylor Young. Today in the broadcast studio, I have two people. Very excited. I've got Dan from Mr. Dan and Horror, and I've got Terence from Terence Miguana, some of my YouTube friends that love movies as much as I do. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for stopping by.
Sure, no problem.
So just in case there are people out there that don't know you guys already, how about if you introduce yourselves and your channels and let them know what you're all about?
Okay, Dan, you go first.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, I've been on YouTube for some years now. My son and I had actually it's still active. We have a Hot Wheels oriented channel, and I stumbled on to some smaller YouTubers that do like movie reviews and things like Night Watch Zone. And I actually was on one of his streams, and I said, I think I might start a channel. And he said, go ahead, do it. And then he said, what's it going to be called? And I just made up the name on the spot. So that's how I started my channel.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Amazing. Well, I don't know. I turned 42 last year, and I've been thinking about it for a while, and just copied a bunch of other people, and that's it, you know. And I've been racking my brain. Well, I call myself movie nugget, film geek, someday or other. I just went, no, I'll just use my real name. There you go. There's my real name. That's my real channel. That's it. And I'm just kind of making it up as I go. I sing songs. I do mixes. Review films, and I just go by day and try not to annoy people.
Yeah, you both have great channels. I'm super glad that you guys agreed to come and do this. So today we're going to talk about Soylent Green, right?
Great.
Yeah.
I love Soylent Green. It's not a film I watch every day, but I do love it. So
first off, you guys both watched it. What did you guys think?
it is a little date. Would you mind if I go first, Dan?
Go ahead. That'd be great.
You sure?
Yeah.
If you ever need me to shut up, just feel free, right? Because I can just go. I could strip the paint off a battleship by talking. But yeah, it is a little dated. I would say it's Soylent Green, not with the themes, not with the ideas, but with the presentation. It looks very 70s. It's in that same ballpark as Rollerball as well. That, yeah, it's 2022, right? We're all got sideburns, bell bottoms, and the video games look like asteroids, right? But I can see past all of that stuff, right? It's the ideas. And the thing I love about Soylent Green is it's not a subtle film. There's no subtlety in this film. Every idea that it has, it makes it front and center. It's right there in the text. There's no hidden meaning to it, right? It's just a prophecy of the future. And yeah, but yeah, what I would really like to see, Karen and Dan, is a remake. I actually think the film could do with a remake, because I think the ideas are so much more valid now than they were in the 1970s. And, you know, with global warming and things like that, I think it'd be nice for younger generations to see this story. I think if I was a teenager now, I would be bored out of my mind with this film. I'd want it off. I'd want Spider-Man. I'd want the Incredible Hulk instead. And I think that Soylent Green is ripe for a remake, to be honest. Regardless of the goofy twist, to be honest, I think it's a lot more than its goofy twist, which everybody knows. You know, it's like the most famous part about the whole film, to be honest.
Yeah, I think The Simpsons have referenced it more than once.
Yeah,
and those references are like over 10 years old now. I mean, they did that like over 10 years ago. So
yeah.
you'd have to have a twist upon a twist if you remade it, I think, somehow. But I agree with Terrence. It is a very dated film, and it's kind of fun to watch for that reason. It's got like, vintage Charlton Heston, some good healthy fist fights with Charlton Heston and Chuck Connors. There's a lot of machismo in this movie.
Yeah.
And it's interesting as far as sideburns and things. In 2001: A Space Odyssey, apparently they had beehive hairdos in the future, right?
Right.
For the intergalactic stewardesses. Of course, the females wouldn't be piloting the ships; they would still be the stewardesses, even in the future. But
Right.
that film at least made an attempt at showing like computerization. This film doesn't have any of that.
No,
Everything
paper
is
and
on
pencil.
paper. Everything is books and paper.
Yeah.
And this film was made after 2001: A Space Odyssey. That part of it seems like they intentionally wanted to almost like make it like dated.
Yeah.
I found that a little strange. Maybe it was just easier to go that route. I don't know. But
Right. They didn't bring up anything about viruses either.
Right.
I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
But I guess they kind of tackled that a little bit in Planet of the Apes. So maybe.
I think they're past that. I think by the way Soylent Green is gone, they are past that. I think they've probably they are become immune to a lot of infectious diseases because according to the film, livestock, plant life is getting absolutely eliminated. The oceans are dying in this film, so there's not really anything to spread diseases anymore because it's the reason we have these Ebola and things like that, or MERS or SARS, is because of encroachment. We're knocking down places we're not supposed to. We're going places we're not supposed to go, right? And if these places start dying out, then so would the infections as well.
So what parts were your favorite, and what were your least favorite parts of the film? Both of you.
There is nothing I would say was my favorite part, but for me, it's just it's Edward G. Robinson as Saul. That character. When one of the last times that I watched it, not recently, but before that, I saw it on Blu-ray, and a friend of mine, a colleague that I worked with, this was in 2010. He'd recently died of cancer, and I'd watched Soylent Green again. Not long after that, I shouldn't have done it, right? And I knew that the backstory about Edward G. Robinson, this was his final performance. And when he goes to the euthanasia station in Soylent Green, and he watches that big cinema screen with the tra-la-la-la-la-la-la music, right? And he was actually dying of stomach cancer at the time. He was dead 12 days later after shooting that scene.
Wow.
No, it's true. And Charlton Heston was the only person on the whole crew that knew this because they'd worked together on the Ten Commandments. They were good friends from working on the Ten Commandments.
Right.
And and I got really upset. I just got really upset. And that scene is just devastating, to watch because it's it just brings up so many horrible emotions. It makes me think. Doesn't make me want to commit suicide or euthanasia, but it makes me think of that sort of helplessness. There's nothing left in the world, and he obviously he becomes aware of that secret, right? The big secret of the film, and that's why he just thinks, well, there's really nothing to live for here.
I knew it was his last film. I didn't realize that though, so it was very, very much his last film.
Yeah. Wow.
His last short time.
Yeah, don't watch it after if you lose anyone. Trust me, Soylent Green is not the film.
Right.
Yeah. It was a really upsetting moment. But that stands out. I wouldn't say it's a favourite moment, but it stands out as one of the really moving scenes in it.
Right.
It almost takes it from that kind of goofy, dated film. And like, even if a younger person stumbled on it, I could see that, anyone getting very moved by that, even if you didn't know who Edward G. Robinson is.
Right.
I had recently just purchased the whole Night Gallery series, and he's in an episode of that called Miracle on Mott Street, where he plays a dying man. And this is a few years before that. And my understanding, even then, he was ill. And that's a very emotional episode, more like a Twilight Zone than a Night Gallery.
Yeah, Night Gallery. I've not seen that. That's the one he did after.
Yeah.
Not seen any of them. There's one by Steven Spielberg in there, and what's her face? Mommy Dearest. No more hangers.
Joan
Joan Crawford.
Crawford.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
Sorry, I think of Mommy Dearest before I think of any other Joan Crawford.
Right. Yeah,
Terrible,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. But like I know him from, of course, from gangster movies, and of course, if you watch cartoons.
Oh yeah.
Oh, all the Bugs Bunny cartoons, they always had a character like Edward G. Robinson. So,
Yeah.
and I knew he was in this. I thought maybe he would just be playing like a government official or something. I didn't know he was going to play that type of character. It really is. It's a strange genre-wise. It's a strange film for him to sort of go out on, but it's a great character and a great performance.
Yeah, I like how he's our sort of mirror character. He's there to sort of represent us, being the audience in what was it, 73, 74?
73, I think. Yeah.
73. So he's there to represent the audience of 1973, going, "Hey, I remember when things were better." Where Tom Heston's like, "What?" doesn't remember any of that stuff. And when he's like, and that's the thing where he's like in that room, and he's like, "Do you see it, Thorne? Do you see? Like, oh." That's
a tough one. It reminded me of Children of Men a little bit when they were. Yeah. He was on the bus and they were having the advertisements for the pill you could take to end your life, and it was they made it seem so wonderful and cheery. You kind of walked off into the clouds.
Yeah, Children of Men does owe a bit of a debt to Soylent Green, I would say, but I love that film as well. But that's the thing. It's these emotional themes throughout the movie, and the message of it that overcomes its 70s dated trappings.
Yeah.
For me anyway. But I put myself into my 12-year-old brain, right? I would completely balk at watching it. I'd be like, oh, no.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
Stick on something with a bit more CGI.
What other little bits of trivia did you guys find on the film?
Well, there's one I've always known. Well, not always known, but I had this book about science fiction films years ago. Harry Harrison, the guy that wrote the novel Make Room, Make Room, he was present on the set. Right, he wasn't too happy with the way Soylent Green went as a film. He's been quoted as saying he was 50% happy. He didn't like the fact that it had this sort of detective story, and it was like sort of shoehorned in to give it a sort of Hollywood plot. But there's a moment in it where the female character, I can't remember her name, right? The furniture, as she's called in the film, right? I know, we'll get to that, yeah, right. Where she goes to collect the beef. There's that beef that they get.
Yeah.
And it's like the only piece of beef in the whole city, kind of thing like that. And when they were shooting that scene, the director had her use a plastic bag to carry the beef around in, right? Yeah. And Harry Harrison, the author, I think that's his name, Harry Harrison, the author of the novel, he was on set and he said, no, she wouldn't have a plastic bag. There's no petroleum. There's no petroleum to make the plastic bag. So that's why she's got a wicker bag in that scene.
Yeah.
She's got some wicker bag is because the writer was there to sort of say, no, like stopping them from making these sort of errors.
Right.
Which got me thinking as well is when they have those scoops that come in to do all the crowd control, which is really silly, right? That is really silly, the scoops thing. I mean, it's cinematic though, and I think what they're getting at is not to be totally realistic in the movie, right? I think they're there to kind of just make it seem extremely dramatic. And those big scoops, it makes me wonder, what do they run on? What fuels those things? Are they solar? Are they,
That's a lot of solar to power that thing. Those things are heavy. I was amazed that like none of the cast got their they can coordinate the part where the scoops are scooping people up with stunt people, but I saw a little making of thing about it, and that whole courtyard was packed with people. Yeah. I mean, it was really packed, and I'm just amazed that thing didn't run over anyone's feet.
Probably did. I mean, this was in the days before the Twilight Zone accident, so Hollywood was a bit more carefree when it came to stunts and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but yeah, I do love that director, Richard Fleischer, right? Mm-hmm. A couple other films that I admire his is 10 Wellington Place. Have you ever seen that one? I'm going
Yeah.
off topic again, aren't I?
Yeah.
That's about the John Christie, this terrible serial killer in England, played by Richard Attenborough from Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
He directed that one, and one of my favourite Charles Bronson movies, Mr. Majestic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the melon
Yeah.
farmer. I just want to get my melons in. Yeah,
It's,
love that film.
that's one of my favorite.
And the Neil Diamond movie, the jazz singer. Hello again, hello. Bit of a personal favourite of mine.
A lot of directors back then, they were all over the place with
Yeah,
films. Different, you know what I mean? You couldn't really like pigeonhole them as like one type of genre director.
I was looking at a list of the films that he's done, and I wrote down Amityville 3D.
Oh my god!
And the jazz singer.
Red Sonja.
And 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Oh my god! Red Sonja.
Interesting.
Yeah, all over the place.
Interesting point about 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It was produced by Walt Disney, right? As you know, right? Walt Disney produced that film. And Richard Fleischer's dad is Max Fleischer, who created the Betty Boop cartoons and all the Out of the Inkwell stuff. And he was a massive rival of Walt Disney. So Walt Disney, you know, he kept his enemies closer. You know, he actually hired his rival's son to direct, which was at the time a big blockbuster movie.
Yeah.
What did you think of the items that he collected that were like to die for, hadn't seen before, like the Pears soap, and the alcohol, of course, and the fact that they used beef meat, which I find really funny too, because just beef is just not really a thing. It's kind of not as many people eat beef now.
Yeah, like when you get older, I barely eat red meat at all anymore. It's very rare. I don't have, I'll eat chicken, I'll eat other things. It just, it doesn't sit well with me anymore. So I'm like phasing it out. And for them, it's like, it's like gold. The girlfriend of the Chuck Connor, so she had that jar of, I guess it was like strawberry jelly.
Yeah.
She was savoring every bit of that, like that was like, I don't know what, like the best dessert ever. And it's, it's something we would take for granted today. That's usually what I have for breakfast. If there's nothing else, I'd put some jelly on some toast, and Charlton Heston he puts the spoon in his pocket, right? Doesn't cover it up, and then he gives it to Saul, and of course Saul puts it right in his mouth, and it's like the best, that made his whole day. Just that little bit.
Well, that's why all I could think of was the germs. They're just like, how can they all be licking that spoon? Ew. What are they doing?
I think that the people have become tougher. They've become more immune, because this movie's prediction is that 2022 is beyond where we are now in their minds, where the humidity, everything has just been absolutely wrecked by the environment, the pollution. That I think people in that diseases, I think they're kind of past that. I think, and by that point, I mean, there's people. That's the thing. It's kind of silly to have Charlton Heston leave his apartment and there's just rows and rows of people just like lying on the stairway, right?
Yeah.
There's so much overcrowding, but I think it's there to make that sort of visual point. It's not there to be taken as a realistic story. It's there as a metaphor for how bad it's going to be.
Yeah, I thought that was a little clunky, having people on the steps when there's other scenes of open areas. Yeah, where there's and there's nobody there, and then there's a few scenes of like the street where there's like a shack here or there that people are living in. That reminded me of like the shanty towns you see in the third world, where people come to get jobs, and if they don't have a house, they just throw one up, and now you have people living in areas with like there's no plumbing.
Yeah, so, it's funny that you say that. There's parts of Los Angeles that look exactly like that. I watched a documentary about homelessness in Los Angeles, and honestly, you'd think it was a slum in Uganda. If you showed someone a picture of it, you go, "Yeah, that's a slum in Uganda." Oh, it's Los Angeles, City of the Stars. Honestly.
It's like they kind of like hinted at that a little bit, but I guess just for set design, they didn't really want to go all out in that direction. So, like you said, it's just to have people on the stairs. It's like a visual representation.
Yeah.
Have you both read the book?
No, I knew someone once that read it. They gave me a sort of synopsis of it, and it's not a detective story. The main character is a detective, but he's like younger. He's like 30. and it's more just a sort of way of immersing you into that world and sort of showing you around that world as opposed to being a detective story. They still have that moment with the not with the scoops, but they have this like cable that comes and like rounds up people. It's a bit more technical than just scooping people up.
It is interesting. I've been speaking of the Twilight Zone and Night Gallery. I've been going back and getting some of the original authors. It's interesting to go back and read the short stories that things were based on. And like Karen, we were talking about The Thing. You know, I read that short story or the novella Who Goes There. Right. But you know, I actually wasn't aware that this was actually even a novel, to be honest with you.
It was called something different too. Make room. Yeah.
Apparently they changed the title because there was a film, a television sitcom, Make Room for Daddy or something.
Oh.
Yeah. There was a silly comedy called Make Room for Daddy at the time, so they changed the title so it didn't get confused with that.
Right.
But they did have Soylent in it. Soylent was a product. It was called Soylent Steaks. They were called in the novel, and there was none of that big twist. I mean, are we going to mention the twist? Everybody that's going to tune into this has seen this film. Am I right? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, what did you guys think of the ending of the film?
The whole film is pretty bleak. That's the thing. If it wasn't so dated looking, I think I would be really depressed. I think when it came out, it must have really upset people, I would imagine.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's good. It's got a couple of fight scenes and things like that, and a couple of stunts.
Yeah, lots of falling.
Yeah,
lots of falling. You know, they were big on that back then.
I'm sure people at the time must have felt, "Wow, this is great. We don't live in that world. That's never going to happen." You know, and now you kind of feel like it's right at our door all the time. We're always being reminded that it's right at our door, especially when they had those humongous forest fires in California. I'd never seen anything like that, where they had shots above the clouds, and you could see the flames above the clouds. My goodness, when did you ever see anything like that in your life? Right? No, and that's what I'm saying is if they remade this film, I think they would have a lot more current issues to draw from, to make it more visually interesting, to make it more apocalyptic, right? I think having it just being a sort of humid New York City doesn't really send it home, the message of the film. It just feels like Predator 2, you know? It doesn't feel like it's really that important.
Right, but you think it's worth a remake, though?
Oh, yeah. I think it is, and I think they could just do away with the whole Soylent Green as people nonsense, because really it's more than that. It's not about just the twist. It's about the whole destruction of society, and that's the thing that I find really interesting about it, because it was made in the 70s, right, where at the time there was a movement. You know, there was a big women's movement. You know, feminism was really coming into itself at the time. That kind of went on the back burner when the 80s came around, once Reagan got in and stuff like that, and Thatcher, right? But there was a real need for a bit more feminism, and I wouldn't say so much in cinema, but just in popular culture at the time, right? And that film was sort of showing that even in the future, we're not going to progress. And what you were saying about earlier on, there's not a lot of technology in this movie. And I think that's the point, is they're still using pens and paper because they're not progressing, right? The fact that we're damaging the environment so much, we're stopping ourselves from actually moving forward. And that comes back to the way women are treated in this film. The term, which wasn't in the novel as well, this was not in the novel.
No.
The furniture thing, calling women furniture, that you just come with the apartment. You're rich enough to own this beautiful apartment, that it comes with its own sort of beautiful woman at the same time. It's really, and she's completely and utterly objectified to the point that her name is an object, your furniture, you know, and that's frightening as well. It's frightening. It kind of makes me think of that show, The Handmaid's Tale, that Vivi absolutely loves. She loves that show, and it's horrible. I can't watch it, right? Where it's just about how we could just go back to sort of the way, you know, it used to be. You know, we could basically go back to the witch hunts of the Middle Ages and stuff like that when it comes to feminism. And that's what I got from Soylent Green as well, is that even though this is the future, because we're so dependent on survival in this grim world, then the chances of women moving forward is kind of remote.
It reminded me, I've read a lot about World War II. It reminded me how in like the Pacific Theater, they had camps for the families of like POWs.
Right.
It's like, you know, the Dutch troops were in Southeast Asia. So they put their families in other camps. And when they went into Hong Kong, they would find eligible young women and offer them a chance to sort of live a more luxurious lifestyle as long as they service the officers a few times a day.
Right.
And some of them had to actually, in some cases, there was a quota. Like, we need a certain amount of girls. And there's one true event where 2 girls who had worked as prostitutes who were going to Hong Kong University, they knew each other and they knew their backstories, but nobody else knew. So they looked at each other and they volunteered to save the younger, more innocent girls. And so, you know, they got to live in a relatively nice apartment, but they had to be at the service of these officers.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of the language that they used to describe people was like dehumanizing. You know, they referred to the women in South Korea that they stole as comfort women. You know, that's what I was thinking of when I was watching that part about the furniture.
But that's it, isn't it? It's in any sort of war scenario, right? And you got to see that in this world, it is kind of like a war of survival, right? That you do use dehumanizing language. You know, it's the same if you're in the Iraq War or if you're in the Vietnam War. The troops are trained to use this language to describe the enemy as subhuman, to make it more reasonable for them to kill them. It's as simple as that. You know, you're going to say some derogatory term towards, there's Charlie over there, then you're gonna feel okay about putting them to death. That's it. And and I think that's part of it. But what I was saying, obviously, when I was talking about feminism in the 70s, right, it's not like it is now, right? But you had people like Gloria Steinem and people like that were really pushing for that, and they were getting a lot of media attention. And even the comedy sitcoms like All in the Family would make jokes about women's lib, right? And you had that Maud character.
Yeah,
exactly. You had these characters that were appearing in popular culture that were bringing feminism into the conversation. And I think it must have been quite jarring for Soylent Green to have, no, we're going back. We're going back to women being completely subordinate.
Yeah, because it's you know, in a lot of these movies, they might like make like the police chief a female or something just to sort of counterbalance that, but not in this film. You know, all the main drivers of action, they were all men.
Exactly.
And a lot of them were manly, very manly men too. You know, and
there was a lot of that.
You didn't see many females.
Yeah, it did. It had that kind of survival of the fittest kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
You know, especially the way that you know, you've got Chuck Connors, right? And you know, I don't want to go off topic here, right? But wouldn't Chuck Connors been the perfect Judge Dredd? Didn't he not just have that jaw to be Judge?
Oh yeah.
He would have been a great Judge Dredd.
Yeah, he was something else. You know, he was in the NBA, right?
Yeah, that's right. He was a basketball player. And
he was a basketball player, and he actually almost played professional baseball too. I think he got signed, but he never played or something like that. He actually wanted to reinvent himself as a horror icon. That's why he made Tourist Trap.
All right.
That was not like, oh, I don't have anything else to do. He was trying to do that, and I think if the timing would have been better, he could have been like a terrifying character, a recurring character. Yeah.
Yeah, I did like him in Soylent Green. I liked all the cast actually. But Edward G. Robinson, he was just perfect.
That was the big surprise for me because I didn't really know what kind of role he had in the movie. So that, to me, that was almost like the high point. And Karen, you were asking about the end. Even though I just saw it on Friday,
Right.
it's hard for me to remember much that happens after the scene with Saul. You know what I mean? He goes to meet his end. I know there was some chasing and things, but it was your standard chasing and punching and, you know,
that was
things
like the
that.
center of the whole film, wasn't it? It just sucked all the energy out of the whole movie. And whenever I think about Soylent Green, that's the first part. That's the thing that comes to my mind, is the euthanasia station place. It just is so heartbreaking. And every time I watch the film, it just makes me think about the way the world is. You know, that we're just so ignorant to our own extinction. I don't really know how you stop this giant corporation train, and that's the thing about Soylent Green got into as well, is that it was about how the government and the corporations were all kind of hand in hand, which wasn't really as much of a big deal in the 70s. I don't think, as you know, I don't think that. I mean, obviously, Nixon gets re-election campaigns in the 70s when he's get companies like McDonald's or whatever will give him money to his campaign, and then they'll slap each other on the back, sort of thing. But not to the degree now where you've got Google and Apple not paying tax in some countries, right? That's just unheard of, right?
I think back then they weren't as aware of things as we are now. I think because of the internet and because of our prying into things and wanting to learn, we're much more aware of the things that are going on, because I think it was all going on back then too, equally the same. And that's why we're where we're at now. I just think we know more now. And that's probably where all of your feeling helpless kind of comes from, because we're so much more aware of it now. We're not just kind of blind to it. All of these things that are going on. That's how I look at it. It's kind of funny. It makes you feel sad, this movie, but it fires me up. I want to get out there and I want to do things and try to make change. And I do feel that sense of hopelessness too. Pardon me, but I feel like it's possible to change things. You know, I think it's possible. So what are your overall thoughts, each of you, of the film? It's pretty depressing.
Yeah, it's a classic, but it's depressing. Yeah.
I'm glad I finally saw it. I mean, I probably would have seen it eventually. I'm glad that this prompted me to finally see it, especially after seeing that Night Gallery episode with Edward G. Robinson. It was really interesting to see this, see him in this. I mean,
it's final performance.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of have to see it, for that. But but the depressing part almost overtakes the goofiness, and it does stay with you. I'm surprised. Yeah, I've been thinking about it a lot this week. I was kind of surprised. I thought it would be, because it has been parodied on The Simpsons. I thought it would be at a level where I wouldn't really have that kind of effect on me, but it has.
I'm grateful for the goofiness, though. I think that the goofiness kind of counterbalance, it sort of kills some of the depressingness. I think if they made it now, it would be very depressing, which I think they should. I think they really, that's why I think films like this are important now, where we're at an age where it's just like the Great Depression, right? In the Great Depression, the most prevalent films were the big Busby Berkeley musicals, pure fantasy escapism. And it seems to be that since we had the Great Recession in 2008, right, and it's just been superheroes, right? Superheroes and fantasy IPs, intellectual properties. And it for me, it's just tiresome. It's just like having a Big Mac every time and it tasting exactly the same. I like these films that kind of make us question the world we live in. Right, and that's what I loved about the 70s, is they had there was a whole gamut of conspiracy thrillers. That's true. Yeah. 2 days, is it 3 days of the Condor?
3 days.
3 days, yeah, and the Parallax View, stuff like this. And Soylent Green is in itself is a conspiracy story, because it does have this conspiracy that's going on throughout it.
Dan, what's your favorite decade of movies, and what kinds of movies do you like the best?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean,
Like this, do you like science fiction? Dystopian?
oh yeah. Well, when I was a kid, I was mostly like a sci-fi kid. You know, all of the classic movies from the Thing from Another World. You know,
Right.
because that was on TV. So,
Yeah.
you know, Star Trek, all the old, you know, the Ray Harryhausen films and things like that. And then, you know, being in high school.
Night Stalker.
Well, that I actually didn't see till later. Like I'm trying. Like I don't know where I must have been. Not at. I must have just missed it. I must not have been at home, or, you know. I mean, I don't know what happened, but I missed that. But I did finally see it. You know, because I'm trying to be like a historian almost.
That's brilliant. I love that show, Karen. It's so good. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I know. I'm so jealous you have that.
I couldn't resist.
Show I ever saw.
I binged that whole series one time. It was brilliant. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good series.
Yeah.
But I think like now looking back, big picture, it's probably like 80s horror is like my favorite.
Most people's taste, I think, is 80s horror. Yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
I like a bit of the 70s stuff too. Like Terrence was saying.
Yeah. The 70s stuff is very comfortable. Even if I find like an old made for TV movie that's horror, maybe science fiction, that's not as common, but you find like a old horror movie from the 70s that you haven't seen before, you know, it's not going to be the best thing ever if you've never heard of it.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's they're so comfortable to watch sometimes.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
It might have a good metal soundtrack. That's
true.
An old 80s horror. No, it's like, yeah, there's Wasp there.
Nice. Well, I will link all of your socials and things down below in the description box. But if you want to just say anything that you're promoting right now, you're going to be working on next.
I'm supposed to be doing this analysis of Basic Instinct. Basic Instinct is coming up for 30 years. So I'm going to do an analysis of that and drop that. I know. I'm going to drop that pretty soon. And I still don't really know how to get my head around it. It's one of these films that is it good or is it a piece of trash? And I think it's a piece of trash, but I'm going to try and find some value to it, you know, or maybe just take the mick out of it. I don't know. Yeah.
What is this called? Interesting. I couldn't resist. I got this from Severin, this televised terror set. And Sharon Stone is in a movie called The Calendar Girl Murders. It is like trashy fun.
Did do a lot of junk.
Look that up, Terrence.
She did do a lot of garbage in the 80s.
Yeah, Tom Skerritt and Sharon Stone, and it was fun. You know.
Are you working on anything, Dan?
I don't have. I mean, I've got all these. I've got a couple books about the stories of Richard Matheson, George Clayton Johnson.
Right.
And who was the other guy? Charles Beaumont, who all worked on The Twilight Zone. So I'll probably make a video eventually where I review the episode and the story.
Right.
That's kind of what I'm thinking about doing. I don't know if that's really been done that much. So that's what I want to do.
Not as much. A lot of people I've seen talk about it and never actually do it. So I think that'd be really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be.
So, and I know this is a way off, but I'm actually doing something with one of the final girls.
You are?
In June, one of the new final girls. We're going to talk about a really cheesy movie from the 80s. She's booked up all the way till June, so I mentioned it to her. So we're going to do it in June. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's cool. I think it's such a great community. All of the movie reviewers, there's so many people, and it's so neat, all the stuff that we're doing.
And it's amazing to actually meet younger people who didn't watch a movie like Soylent Green on TV, who might actually go, you know what, I'll give that a try. You know,
right. Well, I just want to thank you guys so much for stopping by. This was really awesome to talk about Soylent Green. And I'll link all of your socials down below and people can go check out your channels.
That'd be great.
Thanks, Dan. And thanks, Terrence, for stopping by.
Thank you. Thanks, Terrence. Thanks, Karen.
Bye.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I sure did. And I just want to say a huge thank you again to Dan and to Terrence for dropping by and chatting with me about Soylent Green. It was a lot of fun. And I will have their YouTube channels linked in the description box below so you can go check them out too. They've got some great channels. And you both are welcome back anytime you like. And if you guys like this video, don't forget to give me a like because it helps me out a lot, and subscribe to the channel for more movie talk interviews, more movie reviews, and all that fun stuff. And I've got another Final Girls of Horror video coming up this coming Friday, so you guys will have to check that out too. I think we're reviewing Midnight Meat Train. I haven't watched it yet, but I've heard it's really good. I'm also still working on the Exorcist 3 review that I said I was going to be doing, and that will be up very soon. I'm so excited to be going down this path because it's something my dad and I shared, was this love for ghosts and demons and the supernatural. So I'm going to have a bunch more videos kind of in that line and some interviews too. So stay tuned for that. I just want to say thank you guys so much for stopping by and watching. I love you all, and I will see you again next time. Bye guys.